More important to hear God in the little things than hear him in the big things. Now hear me again when I say that. It's more important to hear God's quiet voice and his little voice than to hear God's big, loud voice. God speaks in many different ways. He speaks through the wind, he speaks through the fire, but he also speaks through a still voice. And there's a reason why it is so important to hear him when he speaks through the still voice, because when we hear him speaking through the still voice, we have found the key to breakthrough. We often think breakthrough is coming when I hear God in the tornado, when I hear God explode into my atmosphere, then breakthrough is coming. But the reality is breakthrough comes when we hear the still voice, and I'm going to share with you why that is. You see, I found in my own life that when I start embracing what I think is God as God and just trusting him in those small areas, I experience breakthrough. It's like he builds upon those small voices in my life. And so I have a testimony. I know I've shared this before, but I just want to tell you, those of you who heard the testimony of how I got healed from my hot flashes, I really had to hear God speak to me in a little tiny way that brought the healing. A lot of times when we hear God speak in a little tiny way, we think, well, that's probably me, and it's not even so big and fancy, so how could God use that to heal me or do something miraculous or bring the breakthrough? But when we learn to embrace those little things and just say, thank you, Daddy, I'm just receiving that as your word to me. I'm just receiving that as my crumb. It's like, like if you have a little bird, it's like they're not looking for a banquet. They're just looking for a crumb. And I'm not telling you to not look for the banquet, but when you see the crumb, you've got to embrace that crumb as a gift from God. You can't say, well, I don't want that crumb, I'm looking for the banquet, because you're not going to get the banquet until you learn to embrace the crumb. And so with me personally, when I got healed from my hot flashes, I didn't have any breakthrough from heaven the second time I got healed. For those of you who know my story, the second time I got healed, I was just sitting in a service. A lady came and massaged me on my back. She didn't know I had hot flashes. She didn't know I was struggling. But at that moment, I said, Father, I'm receiving this massage as my healing. Like, I'm just receiving that you caused that stranger to come behind me and massage me right in the moment of my hot flash, because you wanted to show me that this is a moment of healing. And so I received that healing that moment. I just said, God, I'm just receiving it as your healing. And over 2 days, I got completely healed of my hot flashes. They got less and less. And I just kept saying, Father, thank you. And I kept believing him. I just kept thanking him for that crumb, for the massage, and just receiving that as God's word. And so this story that I just want to share with you, it's this little sermon, this mini sermon. It's not about that testimony of mine. It's more about when you hear God speaking to your life and you think, that could be God, but surely it's meant to be more terrific if it is God. Surely it's meant to be more incredible if it is God. So I'm just going to think it's my own voice. When we think that it might be God, when we consider, oh, could this be God? We have to embrace that. Because you know what? If you're wrong and if I'm wrong, we'll just fail. But we'll step up again, and eventually we'll learn how to walk and we'll learn how to run. But we have to embrace those little crumbs in our lives, okay? So God bless you. Embrace the crumb that God gives you today. Bye-bye.